He mocked me, calling me a broke loser, and drenched me in scalding coffee, unaware that my life had changed overnight. The next day, I arrived in a luxury sports car, leaving him speechless. The chill that seeped into my bones wasn't just the spring air, it was the icy grip of despair. Here I was, Gwendolyn Taft, a woman of 68, whose life had twisted into a cruel parody of retirement. While my peers savored leisurely afternoons with their grandchildren and the quiet dignity of their golden years, I found myself a prisoner in my eldest son's guest room, each creak on the stairs a fresh stab of terror. My life had been one of unwavering stability, an accountant for Pierce Construction in San Antonio. Not a grand adventure, but it built the bedrock for a family, especially after Lester, my husband, was snatched away by a heart attack when our children were just 8, 12, and 14. That day, a searing memory, still bled into my consciousness. He complained of heartburn, taken a pill, slumped into his armchair, and within minutes, the vibrant life I knew flickered out. The ambulance's wail arrived too late, leaving me adrift with 3 grieving children and a crushing mortgage. Raymond Pierce's company became my anchor. He was more than a boss. He was a lifeline, allowing me to work from home, never questioning my need for an advance for unexpected expenses. For 34 years, I poured my life into that company, until my retirement 3 years ago. My children, as they grew, branched into vastly different souls. Sybil, my sensitive middle child, blossomed into an elementary school teacher, found love with a programmer named Dominic, and built a beautiful life in Portland with their 2 children, Oliver and June. Their calls were a balm, their homemade Christmas cards a warm embrace against the growing chill of my reality. Frank, the youngest, inherited Lester's quiet passion for electronics. He became an engineer in Chicago, his calls less frequent, but his silent monthly transfers into my account spoke volumes, a steadfast support I often tried to refuse. He'd recently divorced Paula, childless, and his voice on the phone sometimes carried a faint echo of loss, though he claimed to be adjusting to bachelor life. But Harlan, my eldest, was a different story entirely. Impulsive, stubborn, and prone to petty deceptions even as a child. Lester had the knack for reining in his temper, a strength I often lacked after his death. Perhaps I failed him. Or perhaps that was simply Harlan. He carved out a career as an insurance appraiser and married Daisy at 26, a woman whose aspirations to high society far outstripped her fitness club administrator salary. They had Elliot, now 15, and Nora, 13, children who quickly learned to mirror their parents' disdain. The move wasn't a whim. After retirement, I clung to my small, finally paid-off house. My pension, though modest, covered necessities, supplemented by occasional accounting consulting. Then, last fall, a flood ravaged my home. Insurance barely covered the damage, swallowing nearly all my savings. I was contemplating selling my grandmother's silver when Harlan's call came, laced with an unfamiliar solicitousness. "Mom, how would you feel about moving in with us? The kids miss you, and Daisy and I would feel better with you around. We could even rent out your house for extra income." The offer was a lifeboat, though I sensed the hidden currents. My relationship with Harlan was always fraught, and Daisy and I shared little more than strained pleasantries at family gatherings. But desperation, that insidious thief, eventually won. I sold most of my furniture, rented a house, and arrived at their spacious suburban home with 2 suitcases and a fragile hope. The first few days were deceptively warm. Daisy, unusually cordial, showed me to the guest room, allotted me a bathroom shelf and a spot in the fridge. My grandchildren, whom I saw once a year at best, eyed me with cautious politeness. "We're so glad you're here, Mom," Harlan murmured, a hand on my shoulder, his words a hollow promise. "Don't worry about a thing. Just live and enjoy yourself." On the 3rd evening, as Daisy grilled in the backyard and the children chased a badminton shuttlecock, Harlan casually dropped the first stone into my tranquil pond. "By the way, Mom," he began, swirling his lemonade under the umbrella, "Daisy and I work a lot, and the kids are teenagers now. They need supervision. Would you mind picking them up from school and making dinner sometimes? Just a couple of times a week, when we have late shifts." Of course, I agreed. I was living under their roof for free. Helping with the grandchildren seemed the least I could do. A couple of times a week quickly spiraled into a daily, unrelenting chore. Daisy, suddenly consumed by professional development, enrolled in manicure, pedicure, and then yoga classes. "I need my mental balance, Gwen," she declared. Within a month, I was cooking breakfast, lunch, and dinner, laundering, ironing, cleaning, chauffeuring, and tutoring. My opinions, my culinary preferences, my very existence were met with irritation. One evening, I prepared my mother's beloved casserole. What is this disgusting stuff? Daisy grimaced, barely glancing at the dish. You know I don't eat gluten. But there's no gluten, I stammered. Just vegetables, a little cheese. I said I don't eat it, she snapped, turning to the children. Shall we order pizza? Their eager nods were a collective slap. Harlan remained glued to his phone, oblivious. Another time, seeing Elliot's worn-out shirts before a school holiday, I bought him a new one. What are you doing? Harlan roared, snatching the shirt from Elliot's proud hands. Are you trying to show that we can't provide for our own son? Give that rag back and stay out of our business. I just wanted to help, I whispered. And it's not cheap junk. Who cares? He flung the shirt to the floor. We don't need your charity. He didn't speak to me for a week, and Daisy's snide remarks about certain pensioners sticking their noses where they don't belong became a constant, biting refrain. The most painful wound was my grandchildren's swift adoption of their parents' contempt. Initially wary, they now pretended I didn't exist. Elliot, when he thought I couldn't hear, called me an old hag. Nora wrinkled her nose, declaring, You smell old. I tried to speak to Harlan, but his dismissal was brutal. Stop being so dramatic, Mom. You live in our house for free, so be thankful. My only respite was Sybil and Frank's calls. Sybil always began with, How are you feeling, Mom? And listened intently to my carefully guarded replies. I never complained directly, unwilling to poison their sibling relationships, but I knew she sensed the unspoken truth. Mom, you don't have to live with Harlan, she pleaded. Dominic and I would love to have you. Portland's too damp for my old joints, dear, I'd joke, a hollow laugh masking my shame. Besides, you have enough on your plate with the children. Frank, less perceptive, would simply offer more money. Mom, I can send you more. Just tell me what you need. I have everything I need, son. I'd lie, the words tasting like ash. You should buy yourself something nice. These brief oases of warmth only highlighted the barren desert. Of my life at Harlan's, I felt like an unwanted ghost, tolerated only for the services I rendered. Daisy openly boasted to her friends on the phone about her free housekeeper and babysitter. Harlan, if I dared ask for a ride to the clinic, would sigh dramatically and roll his eyes. Don't I have anything else to do? Call a taxi. By the end of the third month, I was desperate, contemplating breaking the lease on my house and going into debt just to escape. Then, the phone rang, a catalyst for a life I never imagined possible. It was a Tuesday, around 5 p.m. Daisy wasn't home, the kids were at practice, Harlan still hours away. As I cooked dinner, my old phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. I almost dismissed it as another scammer, but something, an unseen thread of fate, made me answer. Gwendolyn, this is Raymond Pierce. I don't know if you remember your old boss. His voice, though weaker, was unmistakably Raymond's, with that familiar rasp and Texas drawl. Of course, Mr. Pierce, I replied, my surprise palpable. How are you? Been better, Gwendolyn. Been better. A heavy sigh. Listen, we need to talk. It's important, and not something we can discuss over the phone. Can you come into the office tomorrow at 10 a.m.? I hesitated. Wednesday was Nora's piano lesson day. This is really important, Gwendolyn. Raymond's voice held a pleading undertone. I wouldn't bother you if there was anyone else I could ask. All right, Mr. Pierce. I found myself saying, I'll be there at 10 tomorrow. Thank you, Gwendolyn. And be prepared for a serious conversation. He hung up, leaving me in a daze. We hadn't spoken since my retirement. What could possibly be so urgent? And why did his voice sound so dooming? The morning was crisp, a fall spring in late April. I rose at 5 a.m., long before the household stirred, to prepare breakfast and ready myself. Sleep had been a stranger, my mind replaying Raymond's words. The Pierce construction office, though in the same building, was unrecognizable. Glass partitions, trendy coffee machines, young, tablet-wielding employees. The reception desk was now a canvas of red hair and piercings, a stark contrast to the stern Mrs. Becker of my era. I have an appointment with Mr. Pierce, I announced, Gwendolyn Taft. The girl eyed me, a flicker of surprise in her gaze. Mr. Pierce is waiting. 4th floor, last door. In the elevator, I tugged nervously at my old tweed jacket, a relic from my working days, still respectable thanks to careful mending. Raymond's office, too, had been modernized, spacious with sleek furniture and panoramic San Antonio views. But Raymond himself, he was a ghost of his former self. Gaunt, hair completely gray, deep shadows under his eyes. He stood to greet me, a slight limp in his step. Gwendolyn, he exclaimed, a warmth I hadn't dared hope for. How wonderful to see you. Please, have a seat. He came around his massive desk, opting to sit beside me, dissolving the formal distance. You haven't changed a bit, he smiled weakly. But you, I began, trailing off, fearing the blunt truth. I look terrible, I know. Raymond waved a dismissive hand. Pancreatic cancer, late stage. 3 to 6 months, the doctors say. A gasp caught in my throat, my hand instinctively flying to my lips. Raymond, once the embodiment of tireless vitality, now a shattered man. The sight was a raw, aching pain. I'm so sorry, I murmured. Don't be, he smiled, a fragile thing. I've had a good life, Gwendolyn. Built a successful business, raised a daughter, even played with my grandchildren. But that's not the point. He paused, as if gathering his dwindling strength. I invited you here because the company is in danger. After my diagnosis, I began preparing to sell the business. I want my employees protected, my family to get a fair deal. But my CFO, Vernon Gray, do you remember him? I nodded. Vernon, a slick, young Wall Streeter hired a few years before my retirement, a modernizing force. He's cooking the books, Raymond continued, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Hiding assets, underreporting profits, creating fictitious debts. He's laying the groundwork to buy the company for a song after I die. I have proof, but I need someone who understands all the schemes, who can help fix this before the sale. And you thought of me? I asked, incredulous. But I've been retired for 3 years. Everything has changed. New programs. Raymond's dry, feverish hand covered mine. You're the best accountant I've ever worked with. You have a sharp mind and tremendous integrity. I trust you more than anyone else in this company. But listen, he squeezed my hand tighter. I'm offering you the position of Chief Financial Officer, with full access to all documents, signing authority, and a salary of $75,000 a month. I gasped. The figure was astronomical, tens of times more than I had ever earned. That's impossible, I breathed. You could hire anyone on Wall Street for that kind of money. That's where Vernon came from, Raymond said with a bitter smile. No, I need someone I can trust, someone who knows the company from the inside and won't sell it out for their own gain. He handed me a folder. Here's a 6-month contract. That should be enough time to get everything in order and prepare the company for an honest sale. Take a look. Think about it, but don't drag your feet. Time is against us. I took the folder, my hands trembling. The offer felt surreal, like stepping into a movie. $75,000 a month. Even for 6 months, it was more than I'd earned in my last decade of work. What about Vernon? I managed. He'll just give up his position. I fired him this morning. Raymond permitted himself a faint, grim smile. Security is already packing his things. He'll threaten to sue, of course, but I have enough evidence of his shenanigans that he'll prefer to leave, quietly. I need to think about it, I said, still reeling. Of course, Raymond nodded, but I hope you'll agree. You're the only one who can save what I've built my whole life. I returned to Harlan's house in a fog of confusion. The folder in my bag burned like a brand. I had to concoct a plausible explanation for my absence. Nora would have arrived home, complaining. I was right. Daisy confronted me the moment I stepped inside, eyes narrowed. Where have you been? Nora had to take the bus. She missed her piano lesson. I had to go to the clinic. I lied, the words tasting strange. A spot suddenly opened up with a cardiologist, and I'd been waiting 2 months. And you couldn't have warned me? Daisy's arms crossed. I missed an important meeting. I had to ask for time off to pick up Nora. I tried to call, but my phone died. I continued, weaving the lie. I'm sorry, Daisy. It won't happen again. Like hell it won't, she snorted. Harlan's going to be furious. And furious he was. That evening, my son launched into a tirade about my irresponsibility and ingratitude. We took you in, gave you a roof over your head, and what do? He shouted, spittle flying. You let us down at the first opportunity. Harlan, I explained. I don't care about your explanations. He slammed, his fist on the table. Either you do your job or pack your things and go back to your hole. I lowered my head, the familiar knot of helplessness tightening. Arguing was futile. My mind, however, was miles away, on the contract still in my bag. That night, in the quiet solitude of my room, I retrieved the documents. The terms were beyond generous. A fabulous salary, premium health insurance, a company car, a bonus upon successful sale. The contract was meticulously drafted, no hidden clauses, even compensation for early termination. I spent a sleepless night, weighing the dizzying pros and crushing cons. By morning, my decision was made. I would accept Raymond's offer. It was a chance to help a man who had shown me kindness, and more profoundly, a chance to reclaim my own life. I called Raymond first thing, as soon as Harlan and Daisy left for work and the children departed for school. I accept, I said, no preamble needed. Great. Raymond's voice was filled with relief. When can you start? Tomorrow. I'll see you at the office at 9 a.m., Gwendolyn. Thank you. Hanging up, I pondered my new life. The first question, tell my family? After yesterday's humiliating scene, the answer was a resounding no. Knowing Harlan and Daisy, they'd immediately demand a share of my newfound wealth. No, I would get on my feet first, save for my own place, then decide. My cover story. I'd volunteered at the local library, sorting books, helping visitors. It would explain my weekday absences and sound plausible for a woman my age. That evening, over dinner, I cautiously introduced my volunteering. The library? Harlan asked, mouth full. Why do you do that? So I don't sit at home all day. I shrugged, feigning casualness. I need something to do, to be around people. Who's going to pick up the kids from school and cook dinner? Daisy immediately countered. I've arranged to work part-time. I lied, maintaining my placid facade. I'll be done by 2, so I'll have time for the kids and dinner. Harlan and Daisy exchanged glances, clearly displeased, but unable to argue directly. It was unpaid work, after all. Just don't let it interfere with your duties here, Harlan warned. We didn't take you in, so you could entertain yourself with books. Of course, dear, I replied meekly, suppressing the fierce urge to tell him the truth. The next day, I stepped back into Pierce Construction, into a world that both terrified and invigorated me. The first few weeks were a relentless uphill battle. New software, Vernon's labyrinthine schemes, the thinly veiled skepticism of younger colleagues. But slowly, painstakingly, the pieces began to click. My decades of experience proved invaluable. I knew the company's pulse, its history, its unspoken connections. Accounting had always been my natural language, and Vernon's clever deceptions, once unraveled, revealed a methodical mind, not an impenetrable genius. Raymond, despite his rapidly declining health, came to the office every other day, spent hours with me, his wisdom and trust a constant beacon. You're doing even better than I expected, he said after a particularly successful board meeting where we presented a debt restructuring plan. I knew I was right about you, Gwendolyn. His words were worth more than all the money in the world. For the first time in years, I felt needed, competent, respected. It was an intoxicating feeling, a stark, burning contrast to the contempt that awaited me at home. At home, the situation deteriorated further. Daisy, resentful of my divided time, became even more nitpicky. You've oversalted the soup again, she grimaced at dinner. And the laundry isn't ironed properly. Maybe you should spend less time on your books and more time taking care of the family that took you in. Harlan echoed her complaints. Mom, you've been kind of distracted lately. Yesterday, you forgot my favorite cheese. Today, you didn't write down a message from my boss. It's all because of your stupid library. Maybe you should stop playing charity. But the worst were the grandchildren. Now, knowing their parents wouldn't reprimand them, they dropped all pretense of politeness. One day, I caught Nora rummaging through my bag. What are you doing? I asked, my alarm rising. There was a pay slip in the bag. Looking for money, she replied cheekily. I need a new phone case. Nora, you can't take other people's things, I said, gently retrieving my bag. If you need money, ask your parents. What could I possibly take from you? The girl snorted. You have nothing. You're a bum. I froze, the blunt cruelty of physical blow. Before I could respond, Daisy entered. What's going on here? Grandma won't give me money for a cover, Nora whined. And she hides her stupid bag from us. She was rummaging through my things. I tried to explain. What secrets could you possibly have? Daisy interrupted. You live in our house. You eat our food. If my daughter asks you for something, you have to help her. No buts. Daisy cut me off. Give her the money for the cover since she's asking. I don't think you have anything more important to spend it on. Silently, I took out my wallet and handed Nora $20, the exact amount I'd saved for new tights. She snatched the bill with a triumphant grin and fled. And remember, Daisy poked me with a finger. No secrets in my house. Got it. After she left, I sank onto the bed, trembling. I needed a more secure place for my work documents. The next time, Elliot accidentally spilled orange juice on my favorite blouse, which I just picked up from the dry cleaner for an important investor meeting. Oh, I'm sorry, he feigned remorse. I didn't notice. It's okay. I sighed, knowing it was no accident, the boy's smug satisfaction too obvious. Come on, Mom, Harlan interjected as I tried to wash the stain. It's just an old rag. You can buy yourself a new one someday. They laughed, father and son, exchanging knowing glances. I said nothing, But inside, a knot of hurt and anger twisted tighter. That night, I allowed myself to dream. To truly think about how my new salary would transform my life. A beautiful apartment, a new car, travel. Helping Sybil and Frank, spoiling my grandchildren. Cutting off all contact with Harlan and his family. The thought of this intoxicating freedom brought a smile to my face as I drifted to sleep, imagining Harlan's expression when he learned the truth. But morning brought common sense. I had to proceed cautiously. First, accumulate enough savings, find a place, perhaps consult a lawyer about my will. I wanted Harlan to inherit nothing. So for now, I would endure the daily humiliations. Each morning, I went to my library, worked myself to exhaustion at the office, then returned home to cook, clean, and absorb their complaints and ridicule. It was a bizarre double life, a powerful financial director by day, a powerless servant by night. Exhausting, yes, but the promise of imminent change sustained me. Hang in there, Gwendolyn, Raymond encouraged, noticing the dark circles under my eyes. You're doing an incredible job. Just a little more, and we'll pull the company out of this crisis. I smiled gratefully, keeping my domestic struggles to myself. He had enough worries. Raymond was fading before my eyes. His sheer will the only thing holding him upright, his desire to see his business saved. At home, new burdens were piled upon me. Daisy suddenly decided I should clean the garage and backyard. You sit in your library all day, she declared. Consider it compensation for your absence. But I already do all the housework. I tried to argue, and the library is work too, even if it's unpaid. Who needs your fussing with books? Daisy snapped. You live here for free, so be nice and work for it. I gritted my teeth. The workdays blurred into an endless marathon. Up at 5 a.m., breakfast for everyone, packed lunches, then a silent escape while the house slept. A small luxury, coffee from a cafe on the way to the office, a fleeting moment of peace. By 8:30, I was at my desk, dissecting financial reports. Vernon had left a catastrophic mess, but I methodically, step by painful step, untangled the knot. Gwendolyn, you're a miracle, Raymond exclaimed, reviewing my progress. You've done more in 3 weeks than Vernon did in 3 years. I just know the company, I demurred, beaming inside. By early June, most of Vernon's schemes were exposed, key supplier relations mended, siphoned assets recovered. The hardest part was over. With my first substantial paycheck, I indulged in small, quiet pleasures. A new phone to replace my ancient model, quality cosmetics, a visit to a salon for a modern cut and color to erase the gray. The rest went into a separate account, a growing nest egg for my escape. These subtle changes did not escape Daisy's sharp eye. Did you get your hair done? She asked one evening, squinting. And is that a new phone? Yes, I said, trying to sound casual. A volunteer event at the library, free haircuts from hairdressing students. And Sybil gave me the phone for my birthday. Your birthday's in November, Daisy remarked dryly. It's a belated gift, I quickly replied. She was saving up for it. Daisy clearly didn't believe me, but her interest was fleeting. Had I made the lasagna she'd requested? At the office, I was a different person. A respected professional, my opinion valued, my decisions weighty. Young employees who initially dismissed me as an old lady from the last century now sought my advice. Even the conservative board members, initially opposed to my appointment, now openly acknowledged my competence. Mrs. Taft, you've done an amazing job restructuring the debt with Gardner Investments. Alastair Montgomery, the most nitpicky director, conceded one day. I think we all underestimated you. I nodded, accepting the compliment, and smiled inwardly, imagining Harlan's face if he heard his mother spoken of with such respect. At home, the tension became a suffocating blanket. Harlan and Daisy seemed determined to extract every last drop from me. My duties now included gardening, walking the dog, and helping Elliot with his math homework. Mom, you're an accountant, Harlan would say, dismissing my protests of exhaustion after a long library day. Explain these fractions to him. I don't have time. And I do. I finally snapped. Harlan stared, as if I'd spoken in a foreign tongue. Of course, you have time, he said slowly. What else do you do? Your volunteer work is just a hobby that we graciously allow you to do. I'm a person too, I said quietly. I have my own things to do and needs to fulfill. What other needs? He snorted. You have a roof over your head and food to eat. What more do you want? Instead of complaining, you should be grateful that we took you in. The genuine conviction in his voice chilled me. He truly believed he was doing me a huge favor, and I was merely a grateful recipient. I swallowed my resentment and went to help Elliot, who greeted me with undisguised contempt. Don't think I'm going to listen to some old woman. Just do my homework for me. I took a deep breath, reminding myself, soon. Raymond, perceptive as ever, kept me back after a meeting. Is something wrong, Gwendolyn? He asked, genuine concern softening his weary face. You look exhausted. I wanted to brush it off, to say I was fine. But suddenly, the dam broke. I told him everything. The constant humiliation, the double life, the crushing weight of their contempt. Raymond listened, never interrupting, his eyes filled with a quiet understanding. When I finished, he shook his head. Gwendolyn, why do you put up with this? You now have the means to live on your own. I'm saving up for a place, I explained. I want a nest egg before I take the plunge. That's wise, he nodded. But don't forget, life is too short to waste on those who don't appreciate you. His words resonated deeply, especially from a man facing his own mortality. Raymond was fading, each day a struggle, yet he held on, solving problems, planning for a future he would never see. You're right to want to be financially independent, he continued. But don't let them break your spirit. You're a wonderful woman, Gwendolyn, and you deserve respect. After that conversation, something subtle but profound shifted within me. I still performed my chores, but I no longer sought to please Harlan and Daisy. If their demands were excessive, I calmly refused. If the children were rude, I firmly, quietly called them out. This defiance, of course, was noticed. Daisy complained to Harlan that I had let myself go. He, in turn, reprimanded me. I responded politely, but without my former submissiveness. What's going on with you, Mom? He asked one evening when I refused to sew all his shirts. You've become different. I'm just a human being, Harlan, I replied. And I have my limits. Are we asking too much of you? He asked, looking genuinely offended. After everything we've done for you? What exactly have you done for me? I asked quietly. What do you mean? What have we done? He looked genuinely shocked. We gave you a roof over your head, food, a family. Without us, you'd be living alone in your ramshackle shack with no one to care about you. In his eyes, I saw absolute conviction. This wasn't manipulation, it was his truth. He truly believed he was performing a selfless act, and I was merely an ungrateful burden. For the first time, I realized the chasm between us was unbridgeable. My own son saw me not as a person, but as a function, a convenient tool. No words could change that. From that moment, I began counting the days. Every morning, leaving for work, I mentally noted another day gone. Every evening, returning to Harlan's house, I whispered, "This is temporary." My inner rebellion must have radiated outward because their treatment of me worsened. Daisy stopped even pretending to be polite. Elliot and Nora openly ignored me. Harlan's tone grew increasingly irritated, as if I were a disobedient child. In mid-July, my bank account finally held enough for a month's rent. The next day was a Saturday, ostensibly a day off for me. The office had a cleaning day, and I told Harlan and Daisy I was doing inventory at the library. My plan was to spend the day apartment hunting. But they had other plans. Mom, Daisy and I want to go see this new movie, Harlan announced at breakfast. Will you watch the kids? I have some things planned for today, I replied cautiously. What things? Daisy didn't even look up from her phone. You have the day off. You could spend it doing something useful, spending time with your grandchildren. I have a doctor's appointment. I lied, knowing they wouldn't believe me anyway. The orthopedist for my arthritis. I've been waiting 2 months. Reschedule it, Harlan shrugged. It's not that urgent. I can't reschedule, I said, trying for firmness. The doctor is very busy. The next appointment isn't until September. So what? Daisy interjected. You can wait until September. You won't fall apart. We want to go to the movies. My knees hurt already. I decided to stand my ground. I need to see the doctor. God, Mom. Harlan rolled his eyes. Always your health problems. Why can't you just help your family when they ask you to? I help you every day, my patient's afraid. I cook, clean, pick up the kids, help with homework. Can I have one day to myself? To yourself? Harlan asked, as if I'd uttered an absurdity. What would you do to yourself? You're retired. You don't have a job, hobbies, or friends. Your life is us, your family. I have my own life, I said quietly but firmly. And my own needs. What needs does an old woman have? Daisy snorted, still glued to her phone. The main need at your age is to be useful to your family, not a burden. I looked at her, then at Harlan, who nodded in agreement with Daisy's every word. The conversation was useless. They truly did not see me as a person. I'm sorry, but I can't babysit tonight, I said, rising from the table. I have to go to the doctor. Didn't you hear what we said? Harlan raised his voice. You're not going anywhere. You're staying with the kids. No, I said firmly for the first time. I'm not staying. Harlan's face flushed crimson. He sprang from his chair, towering over me. What do you mean, no? You live in my house. You eat my food, and you'll do what I tell you. I'm your mother, not your servant. I tried to speak calmly, though I trembled inside. And I have a right to my own time. What right? Harlan roared. You live here out of the goodness of our hearts. Out of the goodness of our hearts, do you understand? If it weren't for us, you'd be living in your hole, counting pennies. His words pierced deeper than I expected. Not because they were true. I knew I could now afford a life far superior to theirs, but because they laid bare his contempt, his utter lack of respect. I'm leaving, I said, a strange calm washing over me. I'm going to see the doctor now, and we'll talk tonight when you've calmed down. I turned to leave, but Harlan seized my arm, his grip painful on my wrist. You're not going anywhere. I told you you're staying with the kids. Let go. I struggled. You're hurting me. Hurting you. He laughed maliciously. You don't know what hurting is yet, you ungrateful old hag. We took you in, gave you a home, and instead of gratitude, you throw a scene. Daisy glanced up from her phone, as if nothing unusual was happening. Let me go, Harlan, I repeated, right now. Or what? He squeezed tighter. What are you going to do, you beggar? Where will you go without us? Who needs you? Something inside me snapped. Years of hurt, humiliation, and rejection surged forth. I ripped my hand free and, to my own surprise, screamed, I need myself. I'm a human being, not a thing. I'm your mother who raised you alone after your father died, who worked 2 jobs so you could go to college. And this is how you thank me? By treating me like a servant? By humiliating me in front of my own grandchildren? My screams stunned them into silence. Daisy's head jerked up from her phone. The children froze, mouths agape. But Harlan quickly recovered, his eyes blazing. How dare you raise your voice to me in my own house? He hissed, grabbing his mug of hot tea from the table. You! He didn't finish the sentence. Instead, he threw the scalding tea directly in my face. The hot liquid streamed down my cheeks, neck, and chest, soaking my blouse. I screamed, a raw, primal sound of pain and shock. Get out, you beggar! Harlan yelled, shoving me toward the door. Get out of my house. You're no longer part of this family. You're nobody. Do you hear me? Nobody. Shocked, my face burning, my clothes clinging wetly, I stumbled backward toward the door. Harlan's eyes burned with a fury I'd never witnessed. Behind him, Daisy and the children stood, unperturbed, indifferent, as if this were a normal family spat, not the expulsion of an elderly woman from her home. Pack your things and get out. Harlan continued to shout. I'll give you 10 minutes, then I'll throw everything out onto the street. I turned silently and walked to my room. My hands shook. My face stung from the tea and the humiliation. But inside, a strange, quiet emptiness settled. It was as if a final, vital thread connecting me to this house, to these people, had finally, mercifully, severed. I quickly gathered essentials into a small bag. Documents, my phone, a few changes of clothes. The rest could wait. The main thing was to escape this house that had become my prison. Passing the kitchen, I heard Daisy's voice, a flicker of something in her tone. Maybe you shouldn't have been so harsh. She's your mother, after all. I don't care. Harlan snapped. She crossed the line. Let her get out and live her own life. We'll see how she manages without us. I quietly opened the front door and stepped outside. It was a sunny morning, neighbors tending their gardens, a dog walker passing by. A typical suburban summer day. I walked slowly down the sidewalk, not looking back. My face still burned, my blouse clung uncomfortably, but strangely, I felt lighter than I had in months. A heavy weight had been lifted. Where to now? I thought, stopping at the corner. I had money in my account, but no home. I could call Sybil or Frank, but I didn't want to drag them into this poisonous conflict. I took out my new phone and called a taxi to the nearest hotel. I could afford it now. And then a new life would begin, one with no room for those who didn't know how to appreciate and respect others. Sitting on the bench, waiting for the taxi, I caught myself smiling. For the first time in a very long time, I felt truly free. The Riverview Hotel was a sanctuary. The spacious room, air-conditioned, with a plush bed and a luxurious bathroom, felt like a palace after Harlan's cramped guest room. First, a long, hot shower, washing away not only the sticky traces of tea, but also the accumulated negativity of my past life. Red burn marks remained on my skin, but thankfully they weren't serious. The hotel manager, observing my state, offered a first aid kit. As I carefully applied healing ointment, I finally allowed myself to fully process the day's events. My own son had physically assaulted me, hurled insults, and thrown me out. His wife and children had watched, unmoved. Strangely, instead of despair, I felt only emptiness, a faint bitterness. The last illusion of a familial bond had finally shattered, freeing me from any lingering hopes. I picked up my phone, and after a moment's hesitation, dialed Raymond's number. Despite it being his day off, he answered instantly. "Gwendolyn, is something wrong?" His concern touched me unexpectedly. Holding back tears, I briefly recounted what had happened. "My God," Raymond exhaled when I finished. "That's terrible. Are you all right? Do you need medical attention?" "No, just minor burns," I replied. "I'm at the Riverview Hotel. They have everything here." "Stay there," he said firmly. "I'll call my friend at the real estate agency. We'll find you a decent place to live, not just temporary shelter." Talking to Raymond brought a measure of comfort. I had a job, money, and the promise of a home. Not bad for a woman my age, just cast out by her son. My next call was to Sybil. "Mom," she answered, surprised. "You rarely call on Saturdays." "I'm not living with Harlan anymore," I said, cutting to the chase. "What? Why? What happened?" I told her everything, striving for objectivity, though the details of the tea-throwing still provoked a gasping outrage. "Oh my God, Mom, that's awful," she exclaimed. "Do you want Dominic and me to come over? Or you can fly out to Portland." "No, honey," I replied gently. "I'll be fine. I have a job and money for housing." "A job?" Sybil asked. "You mean volunteering at the library? But does that pay?" Then, I decided it was time for the truth, at least for Sybil. "Actually, I don't work at the library. I'm the chief financial officer at Pierce Construction. I make $75,000 a month." Silence. Then Sybil burst out laughing. "Mom, you're joking, right? $75,000 a month? That's insane." "It's true," I said calmly. "Raymond Pierce, my old boss, offered me the job 2 months ago. I kept it a secret from Harlan and his family because, well, you know why." We spoke for nearly an hour, Sybil barraging me with questions, offering help again. I assured her I could manage, but promised to keep her informed. After Sybil, I called Frank. His reaction was more subdued, his emotions always carefully guarded, but I sensed his genuine outrage and relief that I was safe. The next morning, Raymond called. "Gwendolyn, my friend Marcus from the real estate agency has found something special for you. An apartment in River Heights, a new gated community with a pool and spa. 2 bedrooms, a view of the river. If you're interested, he can show it to you today." I agreed, though I doubted such a place would be within my budget. River Heights was one of San Antonio's most prestigious addresses. Marcus, an energetic man in his 50s, met me at the entrance. The grounds were immaculate, manicured lawns, fountains, winding paths through flowering shrubs. The apartment was simply stunning. A spacious living room with panoramic river views, a modern kitchen, 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, even a small study. Marcus named the price, and I was shocked. It was well within my means. "The owner is going abroad for 3 years," Marcus explained. "He wants to rent to a reliable tenant. I told him about you, a CFO of a reputable company, recommended by Raymond Pierce himself. He agrees to a long-term lease at a fixed rate, with a right of first refusal if you decide to stay." The next day, I signed the lease. By evening, my few belongings were moved from the hotel. The empty rooms felt vast, but I now had the means to furnish them to my liking. On Monday, I returned to work, radiating a new energy that my colleagues immediately noticed. Over the next 2 weeks, I immersed myself in creating my new life. Days at the office, preparing the company for sale with Raymond. Evenings, decorating my apartment, buying furniture, dishes, textiles, slowly transforming the empty space into a true home. I allowed myself small luxuries, a designer sofa, a bed with an orthopedic mattress I'd dreamed of for years, a natural wood dining set. Each new item seemed to solidify my new identity as a successful, independent woman. One evening, Raymond and I were working late, strategizing for upcoming negotiations. "How do you get to work, Gwendolyn?" he asked suddenly. "By taxi," I replied. "It's convenient from River Heights." "Why don't you buy a car?" Raymond suggested. "Your contract includes a company car, but you haven't used it." I hadn't even thought of it. With the move and settling in, it had slipped my mind. "I haven't driven in years," I admitted. "After Lester died, we only had 1 car, and Harlan took it when he left for college. I just got used to public transportation. But you know how to drive?" "Of course, just out of practice." Then it's settled, he smiled, that determined, characteristic Raymond smile. Tomorrow, we're picking out a car for you. Not just any boring little runabout, but something befitting your new status. The next day, despite his failing health, Raymond personally drove me to a Jaguar dealership, one of the city's most prestigious. Raymond, this is too much, I protested, realizing where we were. I don't need such an expensive car. Gwendolyn, he said seriously, turning to me. I won't be around much longer. I want to do something good for people who deserve it. Let me do this. The sales manager, recognizing Raymond, greeted us warmly and led us into the showroom where gleaming cars, each worth more than I had earned in my entire working life, stood like sculptures. You need something elegant, but with character, the manager said, appraising me. Let me suggest the F-Type, our sports convertible. Amazing handling, 0 to 60 in 4 seconds, absolute comfort. He led us to a dark blue beauty with a cream-colored leather interior. It was a work of art. The manager arranged a test drive. 20 minutes later, I was behind the wheel of an F-Type with an instructor, Raymond staying behind, too unwell for such excitement. I felt uncertain at first, overwhelmed by buttons, sensitive pedals, the powerful engine. But gradually, under the instructor's guidance, I adjusted. And when we hit the highway, truly feeling the car's power for the first time, a wave of pure delight washed over me. You're doing great, the instructor praised. For someone who hasn't driven in a long time, you have excellent reflexes. Back in the showroom, I knew. I couldn't give up this car. It embodied my new life, bright, fast-paced, full of possibilities. 2 days later, a dark blue Jaguar F-Type, a beauty, stood proudly in my River Heights parking space. The company paid for it in full as part of my severance package, even arranging intensive driving lessons with a professional. It was as if the world had opened up to me. My own apartment, a prestigious job, a luxury car. I felt 10 years younger, brimming with energy. I took long walks along the waterfront, joined the complex's pool, even started senior yoga classes. My physical transformation continued. I updated my wardrobe, choosing elegant, modern clothes that flattered my figure instead of hiding it. A stylist at a fashion salon gave me a new haircut and taught me natural makeup that refreshed my face without vulgarity. You've literally blossomed, Raymond remarked when I arrived at the office in a new lavender suit, my hair styled. You look 15 years younger. I feel like I have, I admitted. It's like I've started my life over again. It was true. For the first time in many years, I felt like a whole person, not just a function, mother, grandmother, housekeeper, but a woman with her own desires, ambitions, and right to happiness. I talked regularly with Sybil and Frank, who were thrilled by my transformation. Sybil even flew in for a weekend, eyes wide at my new apartment, and of course my car. My goodness, Mom, you look amazing, she exclaimed at the airport. And that's your car? Seriously. We had a wonderful weekend, exploring the city, dining at fine restaurants, talking for hours. Sybil admitted she'd never seen me so happy. You know, I always worried about you, she said, as we sipped wine on my balcony, watching the sunset over the river. I was afraid you'd end up alone, counting every penny. And then, when you moved in with Harlan, I knew something was wrong, but I didn't realize how bad it was. I didn't realize how bad it was either, I confessed. Not until I had a chance to see it from the outside. After she left, Frank visited, taking 3 days off work. He just shook his head respectfully. Wow, Mom, you showed us all up. He helped me with practical things, setting up my computer, installing a security system, hanging shelves. You know, he said as we parted at the airport, I always knew you were special, but you've exceeded all expectations. His words touched me deeply. For the first time, I felt that my children, at least 2 of them, saw me not just as a mother, but as a person with my own achievements and strengths. Work continued to flourish. Raymond and I completed the company restructuring and began negotiations with potential buyers. Raymond's condition deteriorated visibly. He came to the office only once a week now, spending most of his time at home or in the hospital, but his mind remained sharp. We continued to function as a perfectly oiled team. In early August, Raymond called me to his home. He was confined to bed, under the watchful eye of a nurse, but his mind remained lucid, his interest in the company unwavering. Gwendolyn, he said, as I settled into a chair by his bed, documents on my lap. Any news on potential buyers? Yes, and good news, I smiled. Bradford Industries has raised its offer to $120 million. Their lawyers are drafting the contract. Excellent, Raymond smiled weakly. I hope I live to see the signing. Don't say that. I covered his hand. You'll see your company pass into good hands. We discussed a few business matters. Then the conversation unexpectedly turned personal. "How's your son?" Raymond asked. "You didn't tell me if you've had any contact since that incident." "None." I shook my head. "He called a few times, left messages, but I didn't call back." "That's the right thing to do," Raymond nodded. "But you know, my daughter told me something interesting. Her husband works at the insurance company where your Harlan used to work. It turns out he was fired for a serious mistake in the reports that cost the company a major client." "I see." I felt a slight pang of regret, but nothing more. "That's not all," Raymond continued. "Rumor has it he's in serious financial trouble. The bank is threatening to foreclose on his house for late payments. He and his wife are trying to sell it quickly, but the market isn't very favorable right now." I was silent, unsure what to say. On one hand, I felt a flicker of pity for Harlan. He was still my son. On the other, I couldn't shake the feeling of a higher justice at work. "I'm not telling you this to gloat," Raymond said gently, sensing my confusion. "I just thought you should know. Maybe it's time to get your things out of his house before it's too late." "Maybe you're right," I replied thoughtfully. "There are photos, letters, a few mementos I didn't have time to take that day." "Then don't put it off," Raymond advised. "And don't let him hurt you again. You deserve better." That evening, I called Sybil. She confirmed Raymond's words, adding a few painful details. "Daisy called me last week, Mom. They're really in a desperate situation. Harlan can't find a new job. He was fired in a scandal and didn't get any references. They're selling their house, their car, even their furniture. Daisy asked if I could lend them some money." "And what did you say?" "That we're in a difficult situation ourselves right now," Sybil sighed. "And it's true. Dominic's waiting for a promotion, but it's on hold because of restructuring at his company. And the children, you know how much education costs these days." "I know, dear," I said gently. "You did the right thing." "Mom," Sybil's voice grew softer. "Don't you think you should help them? I know Harlan did a terrible thing, but he's still your son." I thought about it. Did I really want to help Harlan after everything? After the humiliation, being thrown out, the scalding tea? "I don't know," I replied. "Honestly, I need to think about it. But first, I want to get my things. I'll call him tomorrow to arrange a meeting." After speaking with Sybil, I sat on my balcony for a long time, watching the lights of San Antonio shimmer, contemplating the cruel twists of fate. 4 months ago, I was a powerless pensioner, a free servant in my son's house. Now, a successful financial director with a luxurious apartment and a sports car. And Harlan, who had treated me so cruelly, now found himself in desperate straits. Was this higher justice? Or just a coincidence? What should I do? Help him, or let him reap the bitter harvest of his actions? In the morning, I called Harlan. He answered almost immediately, his voice betraying a strange, frantic excitement. "Mom, is that you?" "Yes, Harlan." I tried to speak calmly. "I'd like to pick up my things that are still at your place. When can I come over?" Of course," he said with unusual eagerness. "You can come anytime. I'll be home all day." "Then I'll come tomorrow around 11, I said. "Okay, Mom. And I wanted to say, I'm really glad you called. We missed you." I almost laughed at the sudden, saccharine shift in tone. Not long ago, he called me a beggar and thrown me out. Now he missed me? Had Sybil told him about my job, or was he so desperate he'd humiliate himself for financial aid? "See you tomorrow, Harlan," I said, hanging up before his sentimental outburst could fully take root. The next morning, I dressed meticulously, choosing an elegant ivory-sheath dress, low-heeled shoes, and minimalist gold jewelry. I applied natural makeup, styled my hair. Looking in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. The confident, well-groomed woman staring back was a stark contrast to the downtrodden figure I'd been just months ago. At precisely 10:30, I got into my Jaguar and drove toward Harlan's house. The weather was glorious, bright August sunshine, a light breeze, perfect for a drive with the top down. The car glided smoothly, attracting admiring glances. Who would have thought that at 68, I'd be driving a sports convertible, savoring every moment? As I turned onto Harlan Street, my heart involuntarily quickened. I hadn't been here since the day he'd cast me out. The neighborhood was unchanged. Neat houses, trimmed lawns, children's bikes. But now, I viewed it as an outsider, a stranger. Harlan's house, however, stood out, and not in a good way. The lawn was unkempt, oil stains marred the driveway, and a stark for sale sign with a real estate agent's number dominated the front yard. I parked the Jaguar directly in front, turned off the engine, and paused, gathering my thoughts. What did I feel? Strangely, almost nothing. No anger, no lingering resentment, No desire for revenge or gloating. Just a calm certainty that this chapter of my life was over and I had come to close it. I stepped out of the car, straightened my shoulders, and walked to the front door. Before I could ring, it swung open, and Harlan appeared. He'd lost weight, looked haggard, his eyes sunken, dark circles beneath them. More gray streaked his hair. "Mom!" he exclaimed with exaggerated joy. "I'm so glad to see you." He took a step forward, as if to embrace me, but I instinctively took a small step back, and he stopped, arms falling awkwardly. "Hello, Harlan," I said calmly. "I've come for my things." "Yes, of course," he nodded, his smile strained. "Come in, please. Daisy has made tea and cookies." I walked into the house, noting the changes. Some furniture was gone, pictures removed from the walls. What remained looked neglected, dreary. A strange smell hung in the air, stale food, dust, a general air of desolation. Daisy waited in the living room, wearing what she clearly considered her best dress, a slightly outdated garment that did little for her plump figure. Elliot and Nora sat nearby, unusually quiet, clearly embarrassed. "Gwendolyn!" Daisy stepped toward me with a fake, overly bright smile. "How wonderful to see you. You look stunning." Her voice held genuine surprise, her gaze sweeping over my outfit, my hair, my jewelry, everything so different from my former self. "Thank you, Daisy," I nodded. "You too. You look well." The last sentence was a blatant lie. Daisy looked exhausted, unkempt, her makeup smudged, her hair dull. "Please sit down," Harlan said, gesturing to a chair. "Would you like some tea or coffee?" "No, thank you." I remained standing. "I don't have much time. I just wanted to pick up my things." "Yes, of course." Harlan rubbed his hands nervously. "I packed everything into boxes. They're in the garage. But maybe you'd like to stay for a while? We haven't seen each other in so long." "And whose fault is that?" I asked, my voice calm but firm. Harlan flushed, lowering his eyes. "Mom, we're all very sorry about what happened. I wasn't myself. I said some terrible things. It's unforgivable, I know, but maybe we could start over." I looked at my son closely. His eyes held despair, but not remorse. He looked like a drowning man clutching at straws, not a person who sincerely regretted his actions. "Harlan," I said calmly, "let's not pretend. You found out about my new job from Sybil or Frank and decided I could help you out with money. That's why you suddenly remembered your family ties." "What? No." He feigned indignation. "How could you think that? We all missed you. Right, kids?" Elliot and Nora nodded in unison, their faces impassive. It was clear they'd been coached. "Mom, I heard you're working at your old company now," Harlan continued, clearly changing tactics. "That's great. I always knew you were a great professional. And is that your car outside? Impressive." "Yes, that's my Jaguar." I allowed myself a slight smile. "A company car. Part of my compensation package as CFO, Chief Financial Officer." Daisy couldn't hide her surprise. "But you said you were a volunteer at the library." I lied. I replied simply. "I didn't want you to know about my real job and salary." "Salary?" Harlan leaned forward. "And how much do you make, if you don't mind me asking?" $75,000 a month, I said calmly, simply stating a fact. The room fell silent. Harlan froze, mouth agape. Daisy turned pale. The children, for the first time, showed genuine interest, looking at each other in surprise. $75,000 a month, Harlan repeated slowly, as if he couldn't believe his ears. "But that's more than you made in a year at the insurance company," I finished for him. "Yes, life is full of irony, isn't it?" "Mom, that's amazing." Harlan seemed to find his voice. "I'm so happy for you. And you know, it's for the best that it turned out this way. You've gained independence, a new life. Thanks to you kicking me out of the house and pouring hot tea on me." I raised an eyebrow. "Well, that's not what I meant," he said, embarrassed. "It's just everything's for the best, right?" "Maybe," I agreed. "But don't pretend you wanted to help me. You wanted to get rid of the burden, as you called me." "Mom, I was wrong." Harlan took a step toward me, his voice pleading. "I admit it. I acted terribly, but we all make mistakes, right? Didn't you teach us to forgive?" "Yes," I nodded. "And I forgive you, Harlan. But that doesn't mean I'll forget, or that I should put myself at risk of being treated that way again." "But we've changed," Daisy interjected. "The last few months have been difficult for us. We've reevaluated a lot of things." "Yeah, especially when you found out I make $75,000 a month." I couldn't resist the sarcasm. "Gwendolyn, we're truly sorry." Daisy moved closer, her voice now honeyed. "And we'd like you to be part of our family again." "You mean you'd like my money to be part of your family?" I corrected her. Let's be honest, at least now, Mom. Don't be like that. Harlan took another step. Of course, things are tough for us financially right now, but it's not about the money. It's just that I've realized how much you mean to us. I sighed. His insincerity was almost palpable. Where are my things, Harlan? I asked, deciding to end this pointless charade. In the garage, he said, visibly deflated. I'll walk you out. We walked through the kitchen to the garage. There, 3 cardboard boxes, clearly labeled Mom, waited. That's everything, Harlan said. I try not to forget anything. Your photo albums, books, personal items. I opened the top box, glancing through the contents. My old photos, letters, a few mementos. Thanks, I nodded. Can you help me carry them to the car? Harlan picked up 2 boxes, and I took the third, the lightest. We left the house, heading for my Jaguar. Daisy and the children followed, clearly not wanting to miss the spectacle. Wow. Elliot breathed, speaking for the first time since my arrival. Is that really your car, Grandma? Yes, Elliot, it's my car, I said, opening the trunk, which swallowed the 3 boxes easily. Cool, the boy muttered, a hint of reluctant admiration in his voice. Harlan carefully placed the boxes in the trunk and turned to me. Mom, please, let's talk. I know I did a terrible thing, but I'm your son, your flesh and blood. Can't you give me a second chance? I looked at him closely. A grown man stood before me, my own child, whom I had borne, raised, and sacrificed for. But in his eyes, I saw only calculation and despair. No love, no genuine remorse. You know, Harlan, I said calmly, when you kicked me out of the house, you called me a beggar and said I was nobody, that I was living in your house out of the goodness of your heart. You didn't see me as a person, just a function, a convenient servant. I was wrong, he said, lowering his eyes. I didn't mean it. No, you did. I shook my head. And you know what's the saddest part? I almost believed you. I almost believed that I was nobody, that I didn't deserve respect or a decent life. But now I know that's not true. I closed the trunk and walked around the car to get behind the wheel. Mom, please. Harlan followed. We're on the verge of bankruptcy. The bank is taking the house. I don't have a job. The kids could end up on the street. I'm sorry you're in this situation, I said sincerely. But you're a grown man, Harlan. You'll manage. But you could help. His voice took on that familiar, demanding tone. You make a fortune, and your own son could end up homeless. Like you once said to me. I opened the car door. Let's see how you manage without us. Now it's your turn to find out the answer to that question. You can't do this. Harlan's voice became hysterical. I'm your son. Yes, you're my son, I said, getting behind the wheel. And that's exactly why I'm not just going to give you money. It won't help you become a better person. Maybe when you face the consequences of your actions, you'll finally learn to appreciate other people and treat them with respect. I started the engine, and the powerful roar of the motor made Harlan take a step back. Goodbye, Harlan, I said. I wish you and your family all the best. Mom, he made one last desperate attempt. You can't just leave. We're family. Family isn't just blood, I replied. It's mutual respect, care, and support. When you're ready for a real family relationship, you know where to find me. With that, I pulled away, leaving Harlan, Daisy, and the children standing on the driveway, their faces a mixture of confusion and anger. As I pulled onto the highway, I felt a strange sense of relief. Not malice, not vengeful satisfaction, but a profound lightness, as if a heavy weight had been lifted from my shoulders. For the first time in many years, I was completely free. Free from guilt, from false responsibility, from toxic relationships. That evening, I sat on the balcony of my apartment, sipping a glass of fine wine, looking out at the glittering lights of San Antonio. The boxes from Harlan's house sat unpacked in the corner. I would sort through them tomorrow with a clear head. The phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. It was Sybil. Mom, how did it go? Her voice was worried. Fine, I replied calmly. I got my things and left. And Harlan, did he ask for help? Yes, I smiled. As soon as he found out about my salary, he remembered that I was his beloved mother. And what did you decide? Sybil asked cautiously. I refused. I replied simply. Not because I want to get back at him, but because it won't help him become a better person. He has to deal with the consequences of his actions himself. There was silence on the other end. Then Sybil said quietly, You know, Mom, I think you're right. Harlan has always been complicated. Maybe this is exactly what he needs. Maybe, I agreed. Time will tell. After talking to my daughter, I returned to the balcony. The night was warm, a light breeze carrying the scent of blossoming trees from the waterfront. Somewhere in the distance, music played, and I could hear the laughter of people living their lives with their joys and sorrows. I thought about how strange life was. 6 months ago, I was a dependent, downtrodden old woman, a burden to my own son. Now, I was a successful, financially independent woman with my own home, car, and most importantly, a profound sense of self-worth. Money had certainly changed my life for the better. It had given me freedom, comfort, and opportunities one never had before. But true wealth did not come with a bank account. It came with the realization of my own worth, the ability to defend my boundaries, and the courage to live the way I believed was right.